Wagwan, bitches. This is Multiplier. And yeah, fundamentals, kind of tutorial video series, YouTube happening right now. Right, it's all about distortion. And yeah, gonna run you through some basics because it's super fundamental. You understand what's going on and kind of some basics as to why you do it. So, what is distortion? Well, in simple terms, I can probably demonstrate it's probably the best way to do it. So if you look at the waveform we have as an example, this kind of simple bass drum, as you can see, it's a pretty simple kind of sine wave that just kind of decays off. Looks like pretty much just one note the whole way through. Nice and simple, and it's pretty much just that simple bass sound. So as we play the sound through, I'll show you what it looks like on a spectrum kind of analyzer, so you can see what's going on. So yeah, as you can see, looking at this spectrum analyzer, pretty much the main root of this note, or the fundamental note, is this peak down here. So all bass sounds, in fact all sounds that are kind of synthesized will have kind of like a fundamental note. So it's always good to kind of pick it out, and that tells you what kind of the note is. And then all this other information up here are basically harmonics kind of adding to that note. So in this case, we've just got pretty much just that main note going on. But then what happens when you're distorting something is basically you're turning up the volume, so you're kind of increasing the gain, making the amplitude bigger of this wave. And then what happens is eventually as you keep turning it up and up, it doesn't have anywhere to go. So you end up having to chop the top off the wave. So if I show you with let's say you increase the dB by 10, you get this. So as you can see, what's happened is as we've kind of turned it up 10 dB, it's had to chop the top of the waveform off. And when you end up chopping the top of the waveform off, it ends up changing the sound because it's a different wave. And when you change that sound, what you're basically doing is adding in harmonics. So just to give you an idea of what those harmonics look like, if we take our standard bass drum sound and then turn it up with this kind of drive thing down here, so you see it's got a number of dB. So as we turn this up, that's just basically turning up the incoming signal. So yeah, I'll kind of show you. So yeah, let's play the basic sound and I'll turn it up and then you'll hear what's going on. So as you can see, starts to sound nice, but then it starts to sound pretty horrible. If I now turn it up, but you keep your eyes on the spectrum analyzer over here, keep an eye on kind of what's happening to the mid-range and the upper range frequencies as I'm turning it up. And then see if you can hear kind of what's going on, and then I'll explain what is actually going on. Did you see? Basically what's happening is, as you're turning it up, when you end up chopping the tops off those waves, as you can see I'll move it down a bit, as you can see down here, and then I have an example of a 25 dB, so you end up turning it up loads, it ends up chopping it to pieces, turning it basically into a square wave. What's happening with the kind of like the frequencies is you've got your fundamental note, and then basically it adds in all these kind of what are called harmonics. So they're basically like the same note, but at a higher octave in kind of simple terms. So if you have a note down here at like say 48, 49 hertz, the next one is some multiple up from there. Now it's not always an octave, but it happens like mathematically, so it's roughly double every time. And then, yeah, that's kind of what you're hearing when you're hearing kind of more mid-range and more high frequencies. And that's kind of what distortion is. It's kind of adding in those extra frequencies that are related to your fundamental note. And that's why distortion sounds good. Obviously, if you take it too far or do it wrong, those harmonics don't sound nice. And it's definitely a case that, depending on kind of the distortion algorithm you're using, those extra harmonics you're adding in can either sound musical and sound really nice, or they can just sound really horrible. And that's kind of why you have all these different distortion plugins with all these different settings. Simply what that means is each of those distortion modes kind of, when you're turning it up and it's hitting that limit, it basically kind of changes the way in which it chops the tops off. So you can see in this case, when we kind of take a closer look at what's going on when the top of the wave is being chopped off, it's pretty much, there's not much really to it. If you zoom in loads, you can see there's a little bit of rounding off going around the corners, but fundamentally, it's a nice and simple distortion algorithm that's literally just kind of chopping the tops off and just rounding the corners a bit. If you start to use some crazy distortion algorithms, then it kind of distorts and shapes the wave in a more interesting way, and that adds in weirder and weirder harmonics, which can sound really cool or really uncool. So that's kind of what's going on. It's basically just kind of turning it up, and as you turn it up, it has to chop the top off, and as it chops the top off, it's basically adding in extra harmonics relating to the fundamental note, and kind of how those harmonics are added is determined by the distortion algorithm. And yeah, that's basically distortion in a nutshell. And then of course there's loads of ways to use it. Depending on the plugin, there are different ways of mixing in the distorted sound with the original sound. So you can use it in like a subtle way to add like analog warmth, or you can use it in an aggressive way like Mr. Skrillex or dubstep if you just want a really kind of aggressive sound. But fundamentally there's a million different ways of doing it. But doing it right and kind of understanding how it works is super fundamental. It's fun stuff, right? Distortion is pretty fun. Yeah, anyway, that's kind of distortion in a nutshell. Definitely have a play around with whatever DAW you've got. Have a play around with the built-in distortion kind of stuff. I know in Ableton, the saturator is really, really cool. If not, Overdrive does a similar sort of thing with less buttons on it. But yeah, saturator is pretty awesome. In this case, if you've got Ableton Live, you've got a few different kind of distortion modes, like analog clip, soft sine, medium curve, all these ones down here. And you can kind of see in this little picture here what's going on, and that's basically giving you a pictorial representation of roughly what the program is doing when it's kind of chopping the tops off the wave. Yeah, so you can just see what's going on, and each one kind of does things in its own weird little way. So like if you choose Wave Shaper, you can go mental, you can do like bit of this, why is it not changing? Being weird. Oh, don't do that? Right, what's going on? Color, what's going on? It's going weird. Why is it not doing what I thought it would do? Oh, it's probably broken. Oh well, whatever. I thought it's supposed to change this dude over here. Why is that not doing shit at all? Oh, there you go. Ah, that's better. Sometimes you need to press this little dude to see some more settings. But yeah, with the Wave Shaper, you can see you can make mental shit happen. I mean, look at that. That's pretty mental. Look what's going on in that box. So you can make mental shit go weird. Let's see what that does to the original sound. Freeze. Flatten. So as you can see, if you applied that mental wave shape, it basically looks a bit like this. That was pretty cool. So yeah, you can see this is probably quite a good example of some of the mental shit you can do. So you can see we chose that really mental wave shaper setting in the standard Ableton Live distortion effect, and this kind of illustrates that kind of what that's doing, and the fact that if you choose a weird setting, it kind of does weird shit to the wave when it starts to kind of distort, which is cool. So you can see it looks a bit cray. Anyway, got distracted. 10-minute video. Boom. That's distortion. Done. Dusted. 100%. Go team Ableton. Right. Have fun. Yeah, that's gonna be my tip of the day for you advanced nutters who've kind of seen all this before. Check out the saturator. Go to Wave Shaper. Click that little arrow and fucks about with these little settings. You can make mental shit happen, like what I just gone and done did. That's how I've made some of my coolest kind of bass sounds, by the way, when everyone asks, is with this Wave Shaper in Saturator. And then go crank, and then you're good. Sweet, I've been Multiplier. If you have any more kind of videos and shit you want me to do, let me know. Sweet as a nut. Bob's your uncle, it's all good. Over and out.